So let's record our first macro. Using the developer ribbon, we can see whether relative references are on or off. This is just a toggle button. That's off, that's on. For the moment, we'll retain that in on position so that Excel records our relative location rather than our absolute location. And then we click Record Macro button. This brings up the Record Macro dialog box. Our macro needs a name. Now the name must not contain any spaces. I'm going to call this macro command name today because it's going to put my name in the sheet and today's date. Shortcut key, so we'll use a shortcut key to trigger. Now you have to be careful with shortcut keys because if you use a shortcut key that is already used by Excel for something else, then you'll override that setting. So for example, if I were to do Control N, that would actually be a new document, but I would be overriding it with this macro. So I want to involve the Shift key and then put G. So my keyboard shortcut to replay the macro becomes Control Shift G. I then have a number of places to store this. Personal macro workbook, new workbook, this workbook. For the moment, we're retaining things in this workbook. And then the description is totally optional. But if you're a good programmer, you'll always comment your code, and this is your way of commenting the code that will be created. Types, my name, and today's date. When I click OK, the macro starts recording. Now I know it's recording because on the developer ribbon, I have an option for stop recording, and down in the lower status bar, I have an option for stop recording. All I need to do now is record the steps. Now it only records physical steps, it doesn't record time, so you can do this really slowly to make sure no mistakes are made. So where the cursor is, I would like to type my name, come down to the next cell, type today's date, but I always want it to be today's date. So I'm going to use the today function to get me today's date, but then I need to convert that from a formula to a value. So we'll go to the home ribbon and do a copy and paste value back on itself. So that's now a static value rather than the formula. And let's go back and just format my name a little. Let's make it bold, just a little bit bigger, and also fit the column. So all these steps have been recorded in the macro. To now stop the recording, I can go back to the developer ribbon and click stop recording, or come down to the status bar and click stop recording. Either way is as good as the next. Stop, and I've now created and effectively saved my first macro, and the macro will have been converted into Visual Basic by Excel. I've done nothing at the moment, I've done no programming whatsoever. I've just recorded a few steps that Excel has then done the code writing for me. So let's play back our macro and see if it works. So let's pick a cell here. We save the trigger as Control Shift G, and hey presto, my name gets typed in, today's date gets placed. I then go bold, 12 points, and auto fit the column. So this will work in any sheet on any cell in this workbook. Control Shift G, Control Shift G, Control Shift G, Control Shift G. Now it's a pretty simple macro, easy to create and easy to run, but you can see it's doing a useful job. I could use that on new sheets. Here's my name, today's date, so I know that I created it and today's date is always put in for me. So that's creating our macro with a keyboard shortcut so that we can then trigger it at a later point. Now you can trigger the macro by simply going to macros, choosing the macro and run. At any stage, should you forget the keyboard shortcut, or should you have no keyboard shortcut and need a way of triggering the macro to physically make it work.